Hey everyone, before getting into episode number 6, I wanted to give you a quick shout and let you know that the following episode you're about to listen to has some audio problems. We dealt with some technical issues that we couldn't fix when we were recording the episode. It was mostly involving spotty internet connection throughout the entire conversation. You're going to hear through many parts of this episode audio drop out while our guest is talking, and we all apologize for that. And I could have just scrapped the episode and not published it, but we touch on a lot of interesting, insightful, and important topics that I feel are necessary. And so I feel that the overall message and the topics we discuss and the overall themes that we explore through episode number 6 still come through. And I think you'll still leave feeling satisfied. So thanks again for listening, and let's get to destroying that grill and barca lounger, shall we? Well, toss that rusty old grill into the lake and set the barca lounger on fire. This is the Dadward Spiral, and I'm coming in hot. I'm drinking tea, you guys. I'm drinking this fancy tea I got from Whole Foods today because we are living in a time right now where I can't take my daughter to the playground, so all she wants to do is sit in a shopping cart and go to Whole Foods and get a muffin. So you know how on Cheers they know your name? Everyone at fucking Whole Foods knows my name. I swear to God, I know all the employees. They know Lily. They know Lily wants to get a muffin. And that's how I spent my afternoon. Hi, I'm Aaron Pruner, by the way. You could find me on Twitter at Aaron Flux, and you can find me on Facebook, I guess, if you want to, at Aaron W. Pruner. Same with Instagram, but more importantly, we're Dadward Spiral on Twitter and Facebook and the internet and dragonwagonradio.com. And with me
is Eddie Doty, as always. And you can find me at Twitter at Kirby.matrix or twitch.tv/ZeroDork30. By the way, your whole lived-in reality of the Whole Foods employees knowing you by name, that's like second draft writer's room of an SNL Californian sketch. It's every cliche rolled into one.
Oh, it's a whole thing. This used to be a Whole Foods down the street for me, but they closed for renovations and they're turning it into an Amazon Fresh. So all the employees there knew me because I would take Lily on walks in her stroller every morning. And now instead of a stroller, she's in a shopping cart. And I see them 3 times a week. I'm there 3 times a week. And one of the guys is a new dad and he now wants to listen to the show. And so I turned him onto the show. It's kind of insane.
We've been getting not to puff our chest out here, but people are actually listening to this thing and
Eddie,
talking to us about it.
You should be the one who puffs your chest with all the workouts you do online.
Stop it.
With your butt meat. What was that your wife said?
My wife said I have butt beef after working out for the last year. No, listen, firstly, yes, my therapist tells me I need to accept compliments more. So yes, I accept your compliment. I will just say that it was not like a thirst trap desire to get into shape. It was like hey, every dude your age in your family has died. So why don't you not do that and actually start getting rid of cholesterol and shit. So thank you. But it's not like I'm going for an 8-pack or anything. I'm just going for taking a flight of stairs and not wanting life to end.
If ever there was a backhanded way of accepting my compliment. You're I don't want to die though, but thanks.
No, that's yes, thank you. No, because I posted the backstory to this is because you're not all my friends on Facebook, but on Facebook I posted a post of starting working out again a year ago. I used to be a competitive athlete, so I used to have the 6-pack and things, and then I suddenly one day didn't. And I was overweight, and I was nothing crazy. If you saw me, you'd be like, oh, that's a dad. But then I was my dad died when I was 27, and he had 3 heart attacks and multiple surgeries, and my grandpa had a heart attack. Just every dude in my family has has battled like the heart stuff. And so it was born out of like, yeah, I'd prefer not to die. So like I got to start getting in shape now, because if I don't do it now, it's like not going to happen for me. And I don't think genetically I could have afforded to not do it. So I posted some photos, and I got a lot of compliments. And yes, my wife said all the stuff has given me butt beef, which I assume is a compliment. I'll check with her again, but yeah, I assume it's a compliment. And yeah, but no, thank you. And all the dads out there, try to do some stuff for the old ticker. It's good for you. It lets you dad more, and it lets you listen to more Dadward Spiral. So yeah, that's my reason for doing it, to listen to this podcast.
I went on a walk.
Walks are good. No, legit. Walks are amazing. Walks are like a good long walk is like fucking awesome.
Yeah,
for health and shit. So
didn't say it was a long one, but thanks for adding that detail. I'll take it. You know what? We could talk forever, but we have a guest. Yes. Because that's all. That's all we do, is we just hopefully live vicariously through more famous people than ourselves.
Pretty much.
So funny story. Our guest was the first person I approached to be a co-host of mine on this show.
Oh, okay.
Before talking to you, I was like, I think this show needs a female voice. I don't know why. I know it's about fatherhood, and she's hilarious and has a good perspective on life, and we have a good report. Didn't happen. She's on a CBS, sitcom and gallivanting around. I don't know where you can gallivant. Actually, we're in quarantine, but anyway. Kether Donohue is here, and you may know her best from her work on You're the Worst. She has a new TV show on CBS with Chuck Lorre, which is fucking amazing, called Be Positive. But my personal favorite is her work on Grease Live, which I had to cover for work, and her performance was the only one I really liked or remembered from the night that I covered that for work. So, Kether, hi.
Hello.
Oh, dear.
I'm very happy to be here.
Welcome.
This will be the true test. Spectrum is on my shit list or not.
Yeah, we should also preface this by saying it is COVID. We're all recording in separate places, and Kether is the victim of bad Spectrum internet. So we're all hoping for the best. This could just sound like this whole episode could sound like Eddie and I trying to communicate with aliens from another planet all through like a antiquated radio signal, but we're gonna make do. And at the very least, I'll tell my producer to listen to the entire thing and see what they can do if there's anything that they need to do to fix it, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. What matters is Kether is here. Kether is our first female guest, which is awesome, which means she's not a dad.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to role play, we could do that another time.
You know what? Actually, hold on. I want to say for there are some trans parents out there who probably are female and dads at the same time. I think that is an emerging sort of group to like worth talking about.
This is why I have you as my co-host. I would not have thought that. You keep me in line. You do. I said that online. I said that on Facebook. You keep me on track. I have a tendency of rambling and saying some stupid shit, and you come back with like the really thought-provoking questions. And thank you.
Well, I don't think it's. Well, thank you, and I don't think it's. I think you're at fault for it. It's definitely something. It's relatively new, I think, to Grok when it comes to parenthood and stuff like that. But I'm super excited to have you here, Kether, because for a number of reasons. But I love having your perspective on parenting, parenthood, and I can't wait to get into it with you about that. But yeah, there's all types of parents, all types of dads, and you're all welcome in the spiral.
Yeah. Well said, Eddie. And also, Eddie, you guys can't see that Eddie. We should probably post a picture of this. Eddie looks like a pilot. You look like you're in a cockpit right now. I mean, it's a great.
It's my headset. It's my headset.
Oh no!
Yeah. Oh, I froze. Did I freeze? Am I unfrozen now?
This is going to be fantastic. Yeah, Eddie's a gamer. He works for Twitch. He does nerdy things. He likes to say that we're both nerdy, but I don't have one of those headsets, and I don't know how to Twitch.
It's it's $50 at Target, man. This isn't even like that great of a gamer headset. It's like, it's not even, but yes, thank you. I do like, I got to admit, I do like the mic that comes in front of the face so I can pretend to be a pilot. That is my side hustle, pretending to be a pilot.
I'm now not going to be able to unsee that. Kether, how are you, by the way? And I know that we're going to be dealing a lot with probably connection issues, but we haven't. Kether and I and my wife, when pandemic started, would do some Zoom chats, which I thought was really cool, and also gave me a little bit of anxiety because I've never actually hung out with Kether in person, and which is weird. I met some of the cast of You're the Worst at the TCA's, the Television Critics Association press tour a few years ago, but Kether and I never hung out in person. I commented on, I think it was an article or an editorial you wrote, and
body positive article.
What?
It's a body positive article.
But yes, that's exact right. Right. And we started talking on Twitter, but the problem was Kether deletes Twitter seasonally from her phone. So I didn't get a response from her for like
or I check my Twitter DMs like every 6 months.
Yeah, so it was like she replied to something I wrote like almost a year later, and I had no idea what the hell she was talking about. And then the pandemic happened and we started having these little Zoom chats with my wife, which were a lot of fun. And then stuff got really dark in LA. There were protests and riots, and we haven't really done this much. And then, you know, aside from the fact that Kether got busy because productions started kicking up and she got a new job. So I guess.
And all the Spectrum that really busy.
Yes. Don't know what you just said, but
Spectrum is completely borking us tonight.
Well, that just proves the point of what I said, basically.
So
I said Spectrum technicians coming in kept me busy too.
Okay. That's yeah. And I mean, in all seriousness, during this time, we've had certain repair people coming in to fix our stuff here, and it's a little stressful when you have a kid here and don't know. Okay, a few months ago we had our heater turned on and the gas people were like, there is a blockage in your heater and it's not filtering, and carbon monoxide is being if we don't turn it off, you're going to have the threat of having carbon monoxide poisoning. So we had this whole thing, and they were dismantling stuff and going in and turning it off. We had then another technician come in, and they were like, those people at the gas company have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. You need to turn the pilot light on and let it stay on to burn off the dust before the flame goes normal. So this whole thing. So anyways, I'm getting off topic here. Like I said, I usually do about 5 minutes ago. Kether, we're going to try this. I really hope we can get a solid, I just want to start. How are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, what a crazy time it is. And I feel very grateful to be working, I mean, it was pretty crazy. We shot the B positive. Literally, we completed the taping of the pilot literally the night before everything shut down because of the pandemic. So, and then I read later, I think out of 55 network pilots, we were the only one completed. So that I felt like that was a miracle because I have so many actor friends who were on location shooting pilots and their productions got shut down in the middle of the week and they couldn't finish. So I feel really lucky, it's not, I mean, just on like a sane mental health level, because I live alone. Nice to just like actually physically go into work and see people every day. So I feel grateful.
That's good. I and
mad at Spectrum.
And mad at, well, that's going to be a theme throughout the whole episode, I'm assuming. But we're going to move forward with it. I'm watching your show. It's a sitcom.
it's a 3-camera sitcom. We're living in a world where people can't get together in large groups. Do you shoot that in front of an audience?
No. So we had an audience, a live studio audience, the taping of the pilot, because that was the night before the world, flipped upside down. But then when we got picked up, we're told for COVID health guidelines, we are not allowed to have a live studio audience. So we're shooting it very similar to, even though it's multicam, we're shooting it very similar to a single cam, which is, I like it but it's also like, I don't really have much to compare it to because I just came off of a single cam. So right. Like, it doesn't feel like a negative to us. It doesn't feel like, I think when an audience is there, only adds to the fun. If an audience isn't there, it's not like this horrible thing. Still filming funny stuff, and we have a very lovely crew who laughs at all our jokes. So
yeah, I asked that.
We still have a gauge. We still have a gauge of like the laughs.
I asked that because, and I'm going to get to, well, first and foremost, Be Positive, for those of you listening who don't know what it's about. The basic idea is this guy, I don't know if he's a guy in his 30s or 40s, but he's a dad, and he has he's a divorced father, and he finds out that he's in renal failure and he needs a kidney donor. And he ends up getting his old friend from high school, who is kind of a train wreck, who's trying to get her life together, to offer to donate that kidney. And from what I understand, this is inspired by a real experience of the writer on the show, the guy who created the show.
This is Marco Pennett's. It's not his entire true story, but it's loosely based on his story.
Right.
Because he got a kidney donation from this really lovely woman, and their friend. We started production was his 8-year anniversary of getting his kidney.
Wow. That's, yeah. That's gotta be add some sort of closure to his whole experience to be able to see this play out on screen. And also there's a lot of people in the country, I believe, who go to dialysis every day and deal with this stuff. And it's not talked about as much as I think you would expect. But the first thing I actually want to talk to about this that is dad related, and this is more so for Eddie than for you, Kether. It got me thinking. So I've watched 2 episodes so far, and the main character, played by Thomas Middleditch, he finds out that he is in renal failure and needs a kidney, and he doesn't tell his daughter or his his ex-wife. And so far, it seems like in episode 2, he still hasn't told his daughter, which started making me think of the first thing I thought of was Breaking Bad, how Walter White got his cancer diagnosis and didn't tell his family for some time. Mind you, completely different story and horrible, downward spiral for a character into the criminal underworld. But it got me thinking, and I was talking to my wife about this. I'm like, just in real life, as a father, you get this medical diagnosis. How do you communicate this with your family, especially if you have young kids? What would your protocol be with that, Eddie?
That's a great question. And this kind of intertwines with some of the stuff we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But my dad, when I was 8 years old was the time my father had his first heart attack. And my dad was in Vietnam. And at the time we thought that like he was just having heart attacks. He was having heart issues. But he had 3 heart attacks in like less than a year, had to have a triple bypass procedure, and was sort of changed after that. And we were always kind of under the specter of like, he could die at any time or he could live a full kind of healthy life. And the reality was sort of halfway. But it got me thinking about mortality at like a really young age. And, and not only that, but like when I started having kids, like you think in the back of your head, I've inherited, all this stuff. My great grandmother had Alzheimer's, and my grandmother had Parkinson's, and my other grandma had like cancer. I had cancer too, by the way. I had cancer when I was 5 years old. So like
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had a malignant not carcinoma. Jesus, why can't I think of the type of cancer?
A melanoma?
Melanoma, yeah, not carcinoma. But like I had a malignant melanoma on my pelvis when I was born, and I had it removed when I was 5. I've had a few removed since then. It's not like it's skin cancer, so it's not like I've got like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or anything like that. It's not like, as far as cancers go, you could do a lot worse. But still, I mean, it's things you think about. And my mom had cancer, and so all this other stuff. So I mean, I think just having honest conversations about it, and just, the way it was approached to me when my father, before his 3rd heart attack, was something wrong with Dad's heart. He's going to get it taken care of. It's going to be this. They walked me through it. He was originally going to have an angioplasty. So it's like, okay, they're going to do this, but it's going to be okay because he's not going to feel it and all this other stuff. My father had his foot amputated when I was like 21. That was there for that. So for me, I volunteered at the VA hospital in Sepulveda here. So I've been around hospitals and medical things like my whole life, and scenarios in various ways. And the best way is just be honest. Is just, you can be honest without being blunt. You can soften the edges and still deliver the information that needs to be there. And also just not shy away from, because the questions the kids are going to go to are going to be about death. And you just have to like not be intimidated by them talking about it. Thankfully, neither my wife or I have had to have those conversations. It sucks to do, but in terms of it, that's at least the plan, right? Like, I mean, you don't know until you're in it, but just be straightforward and say like, our approach. I feel, my belief is that kids can tell when you're talking to them like a kid, and they can tell when you're talking to them on the level, like intrinsically, they just know. Last week, our guest, Drew McWeeny, said, kids are these empathy machines. So if you empathize with them and create that bridge of like, look, this is what's happening. Here's what's going to happen. I know it sounds scary. This part of it is scary, but these parts aren't. And just be as straightforward as that as possible. It reminds me of the Sesame Street episode where Mr. Hooper died. I watched that live. Thanksgiving '83. I watched that when that happened. I'm one of those people. Yeah, one of those people who had Mr. Hooper, and they consulted doctors and child therapists and child psychologists about it, which is like, you have to definitively draw that line in the sand that he is dead and is not coming back. And if you rewatch that segment, they're telling Big Bird the entire time, like, no, he's gone. He's not coming back. There is no flexibility there, but your feelings are okay. It is hurt. It's okay that it hurts. And it's okay to be afraid, but this is what life is. And it's not all bad. So
yeah,
yeah.
Welcome to the Dadward Spiral.
Yeah,
this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show, because at least you have a good idea of what sort of things you might have inherited from your dad, wise, or your dad's side of the family. Right. I don't. I have absolutely no idea. Like, I found out later in life that I'm partially colorblind because my dad was 100% colorblind. There's certain shades of green and blue that I can't tell apart. There's certain shades of orange, pink, and red I can't tell apart, which makes it very difficult when I'm reading books about colors to my daughter, and she has to correct me of the color that I'm saying. But, before you're about to,
no, go ahead.
When my mother was a kid, I'm assuming that no one at that time talked to, were openly discussed these issues. And so when she hit her early 20s and that accident happened that killed her father, I feel like in a way that might have stunted her emotionally and mentally. Like, she still sleeps with stuffed animals. I had to take 4 boxes of stuffed animals out of her house the other day, because I'm like, these need to be donated to kids who would actually, really need them. But it makes me think about, if you have certain chaos or trauma that happens to you and you're not necessarily prepared or communicated to about these things, that it can then fracture not just you, but the family as a whole, which is what happened to me. And, now my dad died and I never knew him. And I've been having these conversations recently about, okay, well, I'm now a middle-aged man. What do I need to worry about? And what other things did my dad possibly have to deal with aside from addiction and whatever other destructive stuff, alcoholism, all that? I mean, aside from that, like medically, what did his dad have to deal with? I have absolutely no idea. So having these conversations, I think that's important also to know how to talk to my daughter about these things. Yeah. I'm not the best at it. I have high anxiety about medical stuff. I freak out in the hospitals. And this is why they did not let me into the delivery room when my wife was giving birth.
Oh, geez.
That's a sitcom episode. I will say, though, Be Positive handled it really in the episode. There's a really beautiful scene with Izzy G, who plays Thomas Middleditch, Drew. His character is Drew's daughter, because there was a slip. I think Gina slipped and outed him that this was going on. And so his daughter, there's a really beautiful scene with Middleditch and Izzy where she's just like, Dad, are you gonna die? Like that, like you guys were saying, that's the first kid's mind goes, like, oh no, am I gonna lose my parent? And it makes me think, like, I think it's so common actually for my mom has, because my mom's immune compromised, and whenever she has, if flare up some infection or thing, colitis, whenever something pops up, I actually get really mad at her because I'll find out the fact that she has it, something like through my brother. And then I'll be like, Mom, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, oh, I didn't want to get you worried. You're in LA working and I don't want to like distract you. And I'm like, no, Mom, please, you have to tell me these things. And I have a friend whose mom lied to her. I hid it from her that she had cancer for a pretty good chunk of time. I think it's really common actually for people to keep it from their kids because it's a really scary conversation to have. But actually, speaking of dads, and Eddie, I don't know if Aaron told you, but our dads have a lot in common. My dad is a Vietnam War vet as well. And on the dialysis front, there were many reasons that drew me to Be Positive. And one of them was the subject matter, because my dad was on a dialysis machine 3 times a week toward the end of his life.
Same here.
He had, he pretty much, the VA hospital was like second home. I mean, when he wasn't at home, he was at the VA hospital. Yeah. He had, he also had a quadruple bypass surgery. Pretty much every illness he had was linked to war, malaria, kidney failure, Agent Orange. Same. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on.
This is crazy to me. The first time I ever learned about Agent Orange was in Jacob's Ladder, the horror movie starring Tim Robbins. This is crazy to me that you guys have this in common. I'm going to step back and let you talk because this has nothing to do with my experience.
No, it is crazy because my dad did he did 2 tours in Vietnam. He was a document courier. So he was the guy with like the briefcase and the handcuffs, and would like deliver courier documents to from like ComSec and OPSEC and stuff like that through various points. And he was exposed to Agent Orange regularly where he was, because he was in his position was heavily vegetative. And for the audience who doesn't know, Agent Orange was essentially a defoliant. It was it was sprayed from planes to basically be it's a weed killer. It basically killed foliage so that satellite images could get accurate depictions of the battlefield. And my dad would tell me they gave him like these little pills that was supposed to like combat any negative effects, and it didn't. It failed pretty bad. And then later in life, my dad had all these things wrong with him. He had heart disease. He got adult onset diabetes late in life, kidney issues, all these things.
Same with my dad. And I think Agent Orange is the root of a lot of these.
Well,
right?
my dad was in the class action. Yeah, my dad was part of the class action lawsuit. And like, so not originally, because what happened was it was like only a certain number of illnesses they admitted to as part of the settlement. And then I'll never forget this. In 2002, my dad was going to his regular appointments, and they're like, Fred, they just expanded the list of illnesses that are covered by the settlement. Now you should apply. And he applied. And then I think 3 months later, he got a check for like $30,000, and then he got money every month for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and my mom, thank God for my mom. My mom fought so hard on our family's behalf to get the benefits that my dad ended up getting, rightfully so.
Yes.
He ended up getting benefits from the VA that, honestly, I don't know how, as a family, we would have been supported. My dad couldn't work.
Yeah.
Later in life, his illnesses and his severe case of PTSD, he also went blind. I mean, he had so many things, he just couldn't work.
My dad was legally blind too.
Our dads are like the same person.
The same guy. I know. His name wasn't Fred, was he?
What year was your dad in Vietnam?
He did 2 years with gap in between. I think I want to say he did 68 and 71. Because he was in.
I know my dad went there. I know he was there in 67.
Yeah.
I don't
know. It was the first time where he got just bombarded with it. And then I think less so the second time around. No, they do. And so they do this thing for the class action lawsuit. If the people don't know, the VA does this thing called service related disability rating, which is like, if you incurred a disability due to your service, you get a percentage rating that helps calculate your benefit. And this isn't just for Agent Orange, this is for everything. Tammy Duckworth, the senator or congresswoman, but she's missing 2 legs and part of an arm. She has I want to say a 65% service related disability rating.
She's a senator.
Yeah, she's a senator. My father, when you calculated all the things wrong with him, because he had osteomyelitis, chronic neuropathy in his legs, blindness, heart issues, renal failure, he came in at 235% service-related disability rating if you stack them all consecutively. And so it was just great. What was crazy is that he worked at the VA too. He spent 15 years working at the VA. And then when he retired,
he at the VA.
He was a ward clerk. He was and that's how I got to volunteer there. He was basically every ward in the VA has a person who runs the administrative. And so my dad ran the administrative for it was called 51C. It was originally the alcohol drug detox portion of the VA. And then later he was later moved to Gen Pop in building 3.
So
basically,
growing up, were you an army brat? When obviously Vietnam was before you were born.
Before my time, yeah.
Before your time. But some people's parents who were in Vietnam stay in the army and they travel. Were you one of those?
It's a crazy story. So my dad actually was married to a different woman when he was living in Taiwan. My brother's half Chinese. And then his wife, Jane, was getting a lumpectomy. She had a phase 1 breast cancer, but there was an accident and she died on the table due to an improper anesthesiologist. My brother John was 3 at the time, so my dad was a widow. Yeah.
Wait,
what the fuck? Are we doing? Is this? I'm convinced it's the same dude. I'm convinced we're the same
guys are related.
I know. This is so crazy. This is so nuts. No, but it's crazy. It's and so then my dad was a single father for some time.
Wait, John or Jon?
John. Okay, right. He's not half Chinese, is he? Because John Doty is half Chinese. But no, and then he met my mom, and then and my mom was a single mother to my brother David, and then they got married.
I am not even talking with you. My other brothers. I'm not joking.
So the connection is going out on Spectrum, but Kether is freaking out. We currently have a frozen shot of her with her hands up.
I have a brother named David. And
that's insane. That's insane. Wow. Jesus Christ.
David's from another woman too.
That's so insane. Yeah. Like, but so they got married, and then like, and this is the kicker. About 2 years when I was like 2 years old, like not because they had me right after I got married. My mom was like, I want to join the Army, and my dad was working as a recruiter, and he's like, all right. So he hit his quota that month, and she went into boot camp. And if you story, yeah, if you Google the February 1980 issue of Newsweek,
that's what it was.
Yeah, if you Google the February 1980 issue of Newsweek, you'll see my mom on the cover, and they're doing an article about women in the military. And I was in the Army too, so like. It's weird. Definitely an Army family. I was in ROTC in high school. I was in the military as a reservist, and it's colored my relationship with it. My wife, when the subject of like our kids ever going in, my wife was like, "Fuck no!" And originally I was like, if they want to, and then just with everything of the world being what it is now, and coming from the experiences that I have, I can't in good conscience recommend it. And then the final nail in the coffin for me was Kirby Dick's documentary, The Hunting Ground, or Private War. He did two, one about sexual assault on college campuses, one and the other on sexual assault in the military. And I was like, I can't current, like, it's just too many things. It's just too many things right now to like be someone who supports
that. So Eddie, wait, so I've been meaning to ask you this.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. You joined because you were born into or raised in an Army family. Was it always a goal of yours to join?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I had undiagnosed ADHD. I was tested gifted at a young age, but I was a C+ student. I didn't do great, and I also was directionless.
Sorry, Eddie, you cut out. You said you have diagnosed what?
ADHD. I had undiagnosed ADHD at the time, and I was like, I tested gifted, but I didn't I didn't do well, and so my parents never wanted me to go in. It was my idea, and then when I told them like, no, I'm going to join the reserves, and I'm going to go into RTC, I'm going to get my commission, and do my 4 years as an officer. And by the time I'm done, by then at 27, I'll try to figure out what to do with my life. And I joined the reserves. I went to RTC. I got a scholarship. I turned the scholarship down because by that point I had started film school, and I was like, no, I'm good. I feel like I know what I want to do now, and I got everything out of the military that I wanted, and I had a great experience. I was a reservist for 8 years. Just got my VA home loan. Like, I mean, I got everything I wanted out of it. I have great experiences. I had a really positive experience with it. And I have friends who continue to serve to this day. Some of them have gone and a couple not come back, but like my military career is done, and I'm happy with it. It was what I wanted, but it was one of those things where I don't think my parents envisioned it for me. I definitely don't envision it for my kids, for my sons in particular, because the world is just so different now than when I went in. Well,
thank you for your service, Eddie. If my dad on the head if I didn't say thank you.
I appreciate it.
Something my dad went through is, well, also, did your dad enlist or was he drafted?
Enlist. My dad was older. My dad graduated high school in 1955. So he was, he just enlisted of his own accord, like long before Vietnam. He was in the Army 10 years. He was in his early 30s going to Vietnam. So he was a bit older.
My dad was a kid practice. So during Castro and revolution, and when he came to the States, he signed the Refugee Act, which basically says, if you become a citizen of the country, you have to serve. And so my dad was drafted to Vietnam very shortly after he came here, but my dad wanted to. Like he said when he came to America, he kissed ground when he came here. I mean, he was like very proud of his service, whether or not people, even if you don't agree with the war, like think because Dad dealt with a lot when he came back, and even his own brother wouldn't talk to him for a very long time because he didn't agree with the war. But it's like my dad was drafted, But and in college, I directed a short film about me and my dad's relationship, kind of like a coming age to grow up with the dad to be from the war. And I'll never forget, it played a GI festival in DC, and the audience, went up to my dad and said, "Thank you for serving our country." And he said it was really one of the only times he felt the love and felt like a goober, because he, to the point, more met with negative remarks about us.
There was a lot of that, I think. I mean, especially my dad talked about that, and then later on in life, he'd wear his Vietnam vet hat and get a lot more love in probably the last 10 years of his life than he did, 10 years coming out of Vietnam. Is your dad still with us, or did he pass, or is he?
No, he passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
And similar to you, I, from a very young age, I don't remember a time when my dad wasn't sick, like from a very young age, I thought he was going to die soon, because all his illnesses were severe. It was a very real area. So honestly, when he died, the doctors at the VA were like, honestly, we're shocked this didn't happen like 10 years ago. Like, because if you look at all the illnesses he had on a piece of paper, there were people who were like, this is a miracle that he's even alive. How is this man alive with, Agent Orange and malaria and renal failure and dialysis? Would you say with the leg, the neuropathy?
Yeah, neuropathy and osteomyelitis. Yeah, he would just get these random shooting.
Had that too. Yeah. He had heart attacks. He had strokes.
Yeah.
It was just always something. And so, and also after seeing a therapist, I learned kids with fathers or mothers of PTSD could get what they call secondary PTSD. So I had PTSD in my own way as a kid from it. Because there was always this sense of paranoia in the house. And if we couldn't just buy normal rolls of toilet paper, we were stocked. Like my dad would have lived for the pandemic. He would have prepared. He prepared for emergency. He brought his warrior lifestyle into them.
That's
years.
I'm putting the timing of this all together. So Vietnam War, the accident that happened to my grandfather, who was a World War II vet, all happened. That happened in 73, roughly. What, Vietnam ended in 75?
Yes, we saw massive withdrawals in 73. I think 75 is when it wrapped up for good.
So I'm going somewhere with this, and it may be sort of out there a bit, but I was thinking the other day about how trauma like this, PTSD, accident, death, stuff like this, how it impacts a family. And how, so Vietnam was late 60s, most of the 70s. This accident happened to my family in the 70s. The 80s was the decade of latchkey kids and what created what Eddie and I were talking about a few episodes ago about Gen X fathers. And we're both kind of falling in that category. And I wonder if you think that this all sort of ties into this, that the 50s and 60s was this era in the country of exceptionalism and growth and progress. And then the 70s hit, and it feels like the age of innocence started falling apart, and we started dealing with an uptick with the Vietnam War. Charles Manson murders happened. There was sort of an uptick in serial killers, and this America was kind of waking up to the dark side of drugs and crime. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are. I'm going way out there with this, but I grew up in, I don't know if it was considered secondary PTSD, but I definitely grew up in a household of no one dealing with the pain or the accident or the trauma that they were handed. My grandmother came from a generation of we don't talk about it. And so that came out in so many other ways where Kether, I mean, I have some of those personality traits of hoarding, not necessarily toilet paper, but I'm fucking in my head at all times prepared about the absolute worst that can happen at any time. And I'm that way with my daughter today. My wife lets Lily hold like breakable cups and glass jars and glass cups to drink out of, and it freaks me out every fucking time. Immediately I'm thinking that's going to break, she's going to cut herself, she's going to freak out, that something's going to happen, she steps on a step stool, she's going to fall over and hit her head.
I had a cell phone and a pager as a teenager before anybody had a cell phone, because my dad would page me to alert me that he was going to call my cell phone.
Oh yeah. My mom does that. That's my mom's behavior. And I understand why she is always anxious and always like feeling like people are going to forget, or she doesn't trust that, she's always like that. And it comes out in my behavior. And I understand now in going through my own therapy where she got it from. And I'm working so hard to not hand that down to my daughter. But I'm wondering, Eddie and Kether, if you think that these sort of traumas have influenced this entire generation that Kether's younger than me. I know that, but growing up in the 80s and even into the 90s, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. No, please, Kether, go ahead, please.
No, I was just because we're a stream of being here. You're saying reminds me of like, I went to Fordham University, and media studies. She also is interesting. She talked a lot about how what you're saying, that the culture is affected by this, and that it even pours over into media, what we read, see, and hear. So like she had all these really interesting analysis with the plural analyses of like if you look at films in the 80s, like during the Reagan administration, like Rocky and Rambo, and it's all about like this like holding on to this masculinity,
Red Dawn,
and like and that like soft female, softness isn't isn't appropriate, and that we should always hold on to this kind of like what we now are calling toxic masculinity. So I think there's no way that pour over of our entire culture. Like we are all interconnected in that way.
Yeah, it's so funny because like I agree with everything you're saying in terms of our generation having to grapple head on and react to this sort of the distributed PTSD. For me, I went the opposite way. I am to a fault relaxed and chill and not paranoid. And I should be.
Another great reason why you ended up co-hosting this show, because that is the exact opposite.
Seem very like you have a really lovely sensitive quality too.
Yes,
that you are not what the stereotypical toxic masculinity vibe.
I think. Well, thank you. I think the reason for that is because it's weird because I grew up in those same ingredients with a lot of, and my father, high functioning, but definitely drank because he had to, and because he was very cheery and very likable and personable. He had a lot of friends. He was a very well-loved man, but he could put away a couple large size mason jars of beer nightly. And that's just how he processed his trauma. My lived in experiences immediately disproved the sort of toxic masculinity in the air. My mom was an aerospace executive. She was the breadwinner of the family. My father cooked the meals and did the shopping. So at an extraordinarily young age, I was exposed to all the same things you all were. But my parents came to an agreement early on when my mom's career was on the ascent that my dad was like, I don't care. I don't have to overachieve. I can just have a job that allows me to pick the kids up from school, to do all these things. I can do the cooking and cleaning because my mom sucks at cooking. And I can do all these things. And he was good. He was good to just, do that job and then end up watching Agatha Christie and eating cheese and crackers until 11 at night. That's all he strove for. And the net result
seems like a great
goal. By the way,
right?
I really love Agatha Christie.
Yeah,
there you go.
100%.
Oh my God, Poirot. Gotta love
Poirot.
That.
I was just about to say, he loved Poirot, Rumpole the Bailey.
Miss Marple.
Miss Marple.
Forget about Miss Marple.
All that, because people forget, like, before BBC America, there was A&E, and then like A&E shared a network with Nickelodeon half the time, and like A&E was on at like 6 p.m. onward, which caused no shortage of conflict in my household. But no, like I think it's my lived-in experiences insulated me from maybe absorbing a lot of the trauma and toxic masculinity of the era and of the time. That stood to do that. Now that said, at the end of the day, my dad was born in 1937. He's going to inherit a lot of that shit. My mom inherited a lot of patriarchy from her job, like just being the only woman executive in a male-driven industry in the 80s. The thing she had to do to just exist in that space, she had to absorb and internalize a lot of that, not for her benefit a lot. To this day, her and I get into these discussions, and it's shocking some of the things that she still holds on to. So, I don't like, I guess the thing I question for you, Kether, is that like, has your father, like your father not being here now, and I don't know if parenthood is something that you want to, something you look forward to, or something that you want
I do feel innately, I've always felt like that. I know for a fact I'm meant to be a mom. I love my mom so much. My hips were definitely meant to bear children. I just gotta get a boyfriend first, guys.
Fair, totally fair.
But then again, you don't need to be in a relationship to have a child. But yes,
you don't need to have a Thanksgiving dinner to base that turkey. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, jeez. That's awesome.
But no,
like I said, I come in with the quips. I'm the color commentator of this scenario.
But to answer your question, yes, that's definitely something that I'm gonna do in my life.
I'm always curious. The reason why I ask is because I'm always curious, like people who, because like our parents are a roadmap in a lot of ways. Like Aaron and I approach this from two different scenarios. His relationship with his father is different from mine. Bottom line, net result, neither of us have fathers in our lives currently. I have an amazing father-in-law who I absolutely adore. But he didn't raise me. You know what I mean? He didn't know me from a child. When it comes to, one thing my dad was really good at was making me feel safe up until he got sick that first time. And he made me feel safe by his intellect, if not his heft of his body. Is that like, when you think about becoming a parent of your own, when you think about motherhood, how are you relying on memory? Did your father leave anything written behind that you can reference? Is there anything that you can think about that will sort of be that lantern for you when he's not there?
For sure. I mean, I think it's a mix of a few things. Like, I think just intuitively and innately, like I said, I just think didn't grow up with my parents. I feel just intuitively that I draw from just my own intuition with motherhood. For sure, when it comes to my dad specifically, because my dad was an immigrant, and that informed a lot of his parenting. He really loved our country, and he loved serving our country, and he was a dreamer. And I really don't think I would have been an actress if it wasn't for him, you know, because anytime I would tell an adult when I was little, I want to be an actor, you know, you get these very logical, practical responses like, oh,
better have a plan B.
College and
yep.
Right, or statistically actors don't make it. But my dad was the one that was like, no, I'll never forget. I wish I had the video. I know I took a video of him at some point in his life where he just looked at me and he literally repeated the word persist like 1,000 times. And I do his accent really bad, but he was just like, persist, persist, persist. Like he just like kept drilling it into my head. Like, Kether, you want to do this? I know you're going to do it. Like, it's not even an option. You know, I would.
Sorry. I know the Spectrum connection is frustrating. But
no! What's the last thing you heard me say?
It's through the whole episode, but it's fine. It's fine. Look, what you're saying about persist. I was going to ask you about what was that moment where you wanted to pursue acting, but also I think that brings to mind your activism. And that's something I also wanted to talk about before we ended the show, because we're getting close to that time. You know, after the pandemic started, I follow you on Instagram and I noticed that you were very engaged. You're still engaged in certain elements of the activism that was rising up, especially bubbling up after the riots happened, after George Floyd. And I'm curious, where do you think that sort of interest in staying engaged in protest and voicing, you know, making sure certain voices and perspectives are being heard comes from that persist messaging that your dad gave you?
For sure. And I mean, I think it kind of like goes hand in hand with Eddie's question, like what I would know I'm going to dad. I know how powerful that was to have your parent believe in you and share in the enthusiasm and faith in your dreams. So that's something that hands down, I just say, like, I really loved dad and that I want to pass on to my kid. And secondly, Aaron, to answer your question, absolutely. I think my dad had a really strong sense of justice, and he was always like writing letters to, like, you know, if something wasn't happening that, you know, wasn't happening the right way. I mean, he definitely instilled that sense of justice, and I think people, I think something I like to talk about when it comes to this, there's a lot of compassion involved in justice. You know, I think some people who don't like the word act, I know there's still people out there who don't really like the word activism, or it scares them because they get this image in their mind that it's just this, like, you know, these aggressive, like, young people just like protesting in the streets. It's quite the opposite. I get a great deal of compassion fellow human beings to engage in activism, and wanting people to rise to the best of humanity that we can, you know.
I do.
So
yeah,
I definitely had an impact on that mindset.
I feel like more people should probably try to see things from both sides of an argument, whether, you know, right now in the world, in our country, it feels like everything is cut and dry. There's just black and white. There's no gray in between.
Well, and that's how you get cancel culture.
Yeah.
Which I think is also very harmful, because when people don't live in the gray and you have compassion for different perspectives, we completely miss the boat and the window of opportunity to better understand each other and to, like, really listen. And then if someone does fuck up or someone does say or do the wrong thing, like, you know, like, to educate that person of, like, this is why what you said was harmful. and like, you just cancel someone, it completely dismisses that opportunity for growth, which is what acting.
And we were talking about how, certain generations are impacted by watershed moments. And I feel like this generation, I've mentioned this movie before, but The Social Dilemma really puts things into perspective of how psychologically we as a society have changed to where we were 5 years ago, 10. I mean, Barack Obama was the first president to ever utilize a social platform for a campaign. And I was thinking about that today. That wasn't that long ago. And to see how things have shifted so much in the way people react to whether it's pieces of entertainment. The other day, so I don't want to get too political or anything on here, but the other day, Kyle Rittenhouse was bailed out of jail for an obscene amount of money or whatever. And I saw that, and I forget the name of the black kid who was in prison for like 3 years because of stealing a backpack, and I think he ended up killing himself or something. So I wrote on Twitter, "Oh, white dudes really love it when white dudes have guns," and I was assaulted. I told Kether this on the phone. I was just assaulted by anti-Semitic Twitter. And I said nothing about Jews. I'm a Jewish man. I'm not a good Jew. I eat bacon. I've never had a bar mitzvah because I protested the hypocrisy of religion when I was 11 years old. Like all these things. That's a whole other conversation we can have at another time. But like, I was just posting just a random thought in my head, and I got attacked for it. And it gets you in this position where, first off, I'm like, well, this reminds me why I don't like posting personal opinions on social media. But then the flip side of that is I'm old enough to remember when constructive conversations happened between people that did not agree on topics, but still respected each other and loved each other, even though they disagreed on certain ideologies and beliefs. And
also I'll add to that, Aaron, what you prefaced with before you told us about this, you said not to get political, which I understand, but what ended up happening is actually just proof that everything is political.
Yeah.
We like it. Just a living, breathing person in body, depending on what body you're in, depending on where you live, depending on what what your is, everything is political. And the more we try to pretend that certain conversations are political, that really does us a disservice, because everything is political, whether it's labeled that way or not.
Yes. And that's kind of where I was going with that. I the reason I said that is because I don't want to pigeonhole certain listeners if they don't necessarily agree or disagree, because this is a podcast about fatherhood.
I understand why you said it, but
I
part
know.
of the conversation. It's almost like further proof that you kind of have to tread waters when you're even bringing up a topic, because you don't want someone to like scurry away. But it's like, well, we can't scurry away because whether you let or understand that we're not a conversation.
Absolutely. And it's like, there's certain things where, that reminded me of, okay, I have to, tread lightly in certain areas unless I have to expect I'm going to be attacked online. Or, I was wondering when in this show is the right time to bring up the idea of when a woman is a victim of assault or anything that would fall under the umbrella of the Me Too movement. And then you would hear a man come out, usually a celebrity, that would say something like, well, I have daughters, so I understand. And, James Cameron did that at the TCA award, at the TCAs like 2 years ago. He was working on something, and I forget which actress came out to talk about, was on, I think, True Lies. I don't know. Some actors came out with a story about being harassed on set. And he was like, well, I don't condone it. I have daughters. And there is, like, I understand now that I have a daughter, I understand why a man would say that, because in my own experience in growing up and living the life that I'm living, I never really took into consideration specifically 100% of the time how women see the world. I knew to respect women. I was raised with a set of morals and understanding about consent.
How they react to the world.
Yes.
Not only how they see the world, but how the world reacts to them.
Absolutely. 100%. Exactly. And I feel like, I can understand a little bit now why men say that, because now that I'm not going to necessarily say I'm a helicopter parent, but I went from never wanting to be a dad, never thinking I was ever going to get married. Kids scare me. Oh my God, I'm going to have a girl. I don't know how to even be with a girl, let alone a little boy. Like all these things. Now that I have a 2-year-old daughter here, I'm seeing things differently on a day-to-day basis just through my own eyes. And it's opened up a sense of understanding and empathy that I never even thought needed to be opened. But at the same, like I don't really know if I have a point here, but
you do.
I think the point is this: when that happened at TCAs, all my peers, including me, rolled our eyes like, "Oh my God, here we go again with the man saying I have a daughter," because it comes off inauthentic, as if you are putting this on your child and not owning up to it on yourself.
Yes, you're 100. Yeah.
But at the same time, now that I'm a parent, I'm like, oh, I'm seeing things a little differently than ways I used to look at the world, especially now that I have a daughter. And I've had these conversations with my wife about how to inform and educate in a specific way to, interact with the world and be open to things, but also, I think it's kind of similar to the talk that Gary and we had Gary Anthony Williams on a few episodes ago, and he's Black and has a Black kid, and was talking about having that talk with his Black son about how to interact with the police. And it brings up these thoughts in my head where, like, I've wanted to engage with people on social media about these, because I came to this epiphany, but I know that if I was to come out and be like, well, I have a daughter, so I understand, it would come off as bullshit, because that's not where your understanding should come from.
I think this is an opportunity for the gray area discussion to be had. So it's an and. So it's like people could understand, you could tell people a little woman because you have a daughter, and at the same time, it doesn't completely X out reasons why that would piss people off. When it says that, it kind of it gaslights the female experience.
Yes.
There's a lot of arrogance attached to it. I think mainly it gaslights the female experience, but it's like, because there's fathers who molest their daughters, like just because you are a father does not mean you. It's kind of like it's a get out of jail free card that makes them not accountable. Just because you're a father of a daughter doesn't mean you're not accountable. So it's like, this is an and discussion, that it's like, yes, you could acknowledge, and we could acknowledge that you have more empathy or awareness than you would if you didn't have a daughter. And it's important that you're understanding and sensitive that you probably shouldn't be tweeting that, because you know what I mean? There's certain that are just not useful to say.
I guess it was just the other day I had this thought of, like, something happened. I was listening to the radio, like the news or something. And I thought to myself, wow, like that is an impacting thing. And then immediately I was like, oh, I could see why a guy would say, well, I have a daughter, so I condone that, where you should just say, I condone that because that's bad, and that we should all treat each other with respect. But I guess that also in my head falls in line with the idea of thoughts and prayers when a bunch of kids get shot up at a school.
Well, and it's also like when men say that I like or something. Like, okay, you're not a war hero because you have a daughter. It doesn't mean that,
Well, excuse me, Kether.
Well, I would say this. I would say
I'm not directed toward you, Aaron.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm a war hero for many other reasons. Me, a guy who's only held a gun once in my life at my bachelor party of all things.
A lot of dudes go to the range for a bachelor party.
Yeah, in a suit, dude. I was in a suit. It was so dumb. I mean, good, but it was so I felt so like. Sorry, Eddie, go on.
It's okay. I'm of a couple minds about this because on the one hand, listen, if having a daughter is the Rosetta Stone for unlocking the Da Vinci Code of misogyny in our society, hey, at least you've unlocked it. Congratulations.
The Da Vinci Code of misogyny. I don't think it's a Da Vinci Code, dude.
That's what I'm saying. It's not. It's in plain sight for everyone to see. But if having a daughter is the thing that gets you to finally pay attention to it, dude, then and not anyone here, but just general dad man. If having a daughter is the thing that finally gets you to pay attention to it, at least you're paying attention to it. What I would say though is that your child's gender, it's not dependent on your child being a female. I had two boys first, and seeing how the world put expectations on these toddlers, how things were marketed as boy toys, and girl toys. And Aaron, you and I have talked about this. How many times are we as dads out in the world pushing strollers, taking our kids for walks, and invariably you get a compliment going, wow, super dad over here. And it's like, no, I'm just a dad. This is stuff my wife does every day, and society does not see fit to reward her as a super mom. However, just because I am with my kids and making sure they're not getting into the street, I'm somehow a super parent. No, I'm just a parent.
I don't know if I told you this, Eddie. When Lily was young, Kelly got one of those ergo carriers, which is, you strap it on as on the chest, and the baby is held in the front. Yeah. I had such a crisis of, do I go out in public wearing this with a baby as a man? And I was really nervous about it because A, I had never held a baby before, really.
Sure.
B, I had no example of how to do this as a dad. And C, I had already gotten that sort of attention out on the street, pushing her in a stroller, and I didn't want that. I felt like putting Lily on my chest and carrying her and go for a walk like that would just draw attention from strangers that I did not want. I just wanted to have this moment with my daughter. And it's so infuriating, but I guess there's an element of it where you should just take the compliment, or, and be nice, but this shouldn't be. I took Lily to the zoo. I didn't even say anything about this. Kelly and I had an appointment to take our daughter to the zoo the other day.
We're doing that in 2 weeks. We're doing
socially distanced LA Zoo. You had to make an appointment. We booked
a spot. Yeah.
Be prepared to see a lot of people not wearing their masks right.
Awesome. Can't wait.
That's even if they're going to stay open after this stay-at-home order goes into effect.
No shit, right?
But we took her there, and it even walking around pushing the stroller, I was just very aware with how other people reacted and interacted. It was a little different at the zoo because there's a lot of parents there with kids. But that was something I really had to get over. And I pitched that as an idea to write for the Washington Post. That never happened. But then I think our first episode, we talked about the Kevlar vest, the camo manly baby carrier.
Diaper bag. Oh my God. That thing.
I cannot believe it. I swear to God, I was tempted to get like a stylish man baby carrier to make it more fit to make me comfortable. And it shouldn't even be about that.
My wife's into Vera Bradley. So all of our diaper bags are like these Vera Bradley. And if you're a man, you're not familiar with Vera Bradley.
No, I'm not.
Very bright floral hand stitched bag. I fucking love those things. Like those things that, firstly, they're sturdy as hell because they've got like a million stitches in them. and they're big. They actually like hold all the shit you need to hold. Like I'm at this state, like it didn't take long because necessity is the mother of invention. It just works as a bag. Like who gives a shit?
Right.
Like I don't need tactical webbing on my diaper bag in order to feel, and that's the thing. Like
you don't want to show people you're a military dad.
Firstly, here's the thing, and this is the other, and this is Kether for you. Like this, going back to that a little bit, like it's so funny that like people who are not in the military project a singular type of masculinity on those who tend to be in. And I think like my dad was a big ass teddy bear who like cried at the end of Casablanca and also killed people.
My dad was like the most sensitive man
I've
ever met.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie,
go ahead.
Kind of chime in here. I have for weeks talked about the idea of masculinity and the idea of what I thought a dad should be as opposed to what I am, or what I thought a man was as opposed to who I am. And no offense, man, you were a martial arts guy and in the military. You are no. Hold on. I came to you because I knew you had this empathetic, sensitive quality, but you are like you are of the people I know that I've known for a while. You're a little bit up there on the list of machismo, man. Like you are what I consider to be dude like.
But what is the story behind that? The story behind that is I was a kid who moved every school year. I was afraid of my own shadow. When I went on my brother's motorcycle when I was 5, I like sobbed because I was so scared, was scared of heights. I did these things to overcome fear. I joined these things to get like to improve myself and to just get over it. When I still look in the mirror, I still see the skinny kid with like the rail thin arms and the bubble gut, and like I still see that person in the mirror. And again, we could talk about body imagery and how it fucks with men and like and the beauty standards for men, and like my brother David who was like born with a 6-pack and like can fucking do like heavy squats when he was like 10. Like I grew up around that, and I was like the runt of the litter. I had to do things just so I could feel like, just so I wasn't afraid of so much. And like that was my only like coping mechanism from some of the, talking about earlier, some of the PTSD around our house. I wasn't in control of so many things. I had to do things where I had an element of control or where I could feel in control. And it was also just a lot of time on myself because like my parents worked and my dad was sick. And like, so when I lived in Newport Beach, like, I had to go surf because like, what else was I going to fucking do? I mean, like all these little hobbies that paint a picture of a quote unquote manly man are really just fragments of like a very broken existence. And like, I made something out of it. And I think that's what all men have to do.
Yes, I agree with you, but I would just like to say you surfed when you were a kid and I almost drowned in the ocean, was afraid of sand and the water and the sun. So anyways, you were asking a question to Kether.
It's okay.
Because we got to end this soon.
We got to end this. No, I was just saying like, Kether, with your experience with your dad, like, did you find, because like our first definition of masculinity for kids is our dads, you know what I mean? Like, did you, all this is to say, let's say you have a kid and let's say it's a boy. In what ways would you want your son to be like your dad that are the best of what you think sort of a boy or a man could be?
And I mean, I think that's why it's good to embrace complex discussion, because it's like on one end of the spectrum, my dad was a very sensitive, emotionally expressive man. And that's something, if I have a boy, I want to do that. But on the other end of the spectrum, because my dad had PTSD, his emotional expression oftentimes became volatile. Not like he was not, I want to just put it out there, he was not abusive, like physically or anything like that. But it was scary. You know, there was a lot of yelling in the house, and it was very, you know what I mean? He was very emotionally expressive in a non-contained way, where it was just kind of like very untamed, you know? So I think I'm also mindful of how to funnel that, you know, like I think kids need to learn how to funnel their energies, and maybe perhaps I would encourage them to funnel that in creative ways, like to not suppress your emotions, but inappropriately be yelling at people or that kind of thing. Yeah.
I think that's the answer we're all trying to solve, you know, like, and the complexity thing is, you're right. Like I said, you know, our dads were these, you know, emotionally available to us, sensitive men who also, you know, participated in war, and like my dad and I never had the discussion of, did you kill people? It was always just sort of assumed. And to compare that night and day with your experience growing up, I think that's interesting. It'll be interesting, I think, for Aaron and I and a lot of other parents, like to see how our kids respond to the lives we had before them. Aaron and I were club kids, like in Hollywood.
We you know, there was a time when I wore black lipstick and eyeliner, and I had MAC white face powder and vinyl pants and boots. And no, there are not pictures. So I was smart enough to not leave photographic evidence.
This tells you everything you need to know about me. When I was in boot camp, and we did in week 7, when we did our field training exercise where we go out in the bush and all that other stuff, and I had to do camo face paint, I absolutely did brown and olive drab green crow makeup as my face camo. Everybody else had, like, you know, the tiger stripes and everything else. I did the crow because I'm fucking garbage. Anyway, go ahead, Aaron.
No, it's fine. And you're talking about, you know, father figures growing up, and that had me thinking, I'm like, God, who did I look to for masculinity? Yeah. And I guess it was Bo and Luke Duke from the Dukes of Hazzard.
There you
go. Michael Knight from Knight Rider, and pretty much every wrestler from the early 80s on WWF, from Jake the Snake to Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and Andre the Giant, and of course Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. I don't know what that was, but I think that's
a good way to kick us off.
That was the sound effect telling us it's time to wrap up this episode. Kether, I thank you for coming and joining us. You didn't go anywhere. You're in your house. Thank you for joining us. I
came from my bedroom into this other room. So
I think I see a refrigerator.
Yes, I'm currently in my kitchen.
Yeah. So again, we're going to do our best with this choppy internet connection. Aside from that, though, this has been an amazing conversation. Yeah, I've wanted to do this with Kether for a while. So this has been eye-opening and heartfelt, and it helps me to understand this experience a bit more, which is the reason why I started this show. Kether, how can people find you online if you want them to find you?
Well, on Instagram, I'm at Kether Donohue. Twitter, I mean, I'm the most boring tweeter in the world. I rarely tweet, so don't even bother.
For a while there, I had on my Twitter profile a quote from Kether Donohue: Aaron tweets on the reg, and I guess I still do.
And if you send me a Twitter DM, I will probably not see it for a year.
Yeah, she'll get to it when we have another president. God willing. Yeah, this wraps up another episode of the Dadward Spiral. Put your tray tables and seat backs in their upright position. We're coming to our final landing. Once again, I'm Aaron Pruner. You can find me at Aaron Flux on Twitter, Aaron W. Pruner on Instagram and Facebook, because I tried to make it official. But here's the thing, guys. I had a previous job where I worked as an entertainment journalist, where I somehow got that blue check mark on Twitter. And if I change my name on Twitter, that blue check mark goes away.
Yes.
That right there is status and currency, and I'm holding on to that in this dark world we're living in. But Dadward Spiral on Twitter and Facebook, as well as at Dragon Wagon Radio, who gives us life. And if you out there listening have a need for some nice coffee mugs or a t-shirt or maybe some COVID-19 masks, hit that shop tab on the Dragon Wagon Radio website, and you may happen upon some cool looking merchandise for this show as well as other shows on the platform.
Really good shows on this channel, by the way. And I'm not just saying that because Jake's my friend and because we're on the same. Like, there's some good stuff here. Please look around Dragon Wagon Radio. There's the podcast just for you.
Yeah, shout out to Coy Jandro, who has the Coy cast. He came from Collider. I've known Coy for a while.
Coy was my host for a while on one of my shows.
Seriously. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, I just hit Coy up today because he just did a thing with Kevin Smith.
Saw that.
Like, hey, buddy, Kevin Smith's a dad.
Yeah, legit.
Well, we have something to talk about, but that's for another conversation because we always have more of those to have. Once again, thanks to Kether Donohue for joining us. I have a feeling Kether may return to the show at some point because
I think this is a ...
There is so much more to discuss,
to go into. Yeah.
And hopefully better internet connections on all. Look. Okay, we're recording this on a Friday night. Everyone's home. We're about to go back into a pandemic lockdown. It was just Thanksgiving. Like,
everyone's streaming White Christmas.
Yes, exactly. So I hope. Yeah. By the way, we recorded this day after Thanksgiving. You're going to be listening to this in a week. I am off topic here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to my rambling. Thank you to Eddie for keeping me on point. Thank you to Kether for her great perspective on everything we've discussed, even the most difficult, darker, harder things to discuss tonight. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure Eddie appreciates it too.
Very much so.
Eddie, once again, where can people find you?
Find me at twitter.com at Kirby.matrix. Somebody asked what that is in reference to. Kirby Dots. It's a style of art from Jack Kirby, the famous comic book artist. Dot Matrix printers. I did a lot of ASCII art when I was a kid. So Kirby.matrix. Ha ha ha. Very funny.
Oh, I thought that was like a cartoon reference.
Kind of comic bookish kind of thing. And then twitch.tv 0dork30. I never stream anymore because I'm too busy doing this. But when I do stream, I'm there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm taking you away from your streaming life.
No, not just you. Not just you. It's
whatever.
It's life.
Also,
man.
you guys need to become Facebook friends. Did I hear in the beginning of the conversation you're not Facebook?
No, we
friends?
are.
No. What did it?
Oh no, I was saying for the audience who doesn't follow me on Facebook for the reference of the post. Yeah.
And Spectrum. That's a Spectrum fail.
That's okay.
Eddie and I have been Facebook pals for a while.
A long time since I've had a Facebook account.
Spectrum, if you're listening, step up your game.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. You fools.
Well, on that note, this episode has been brought to you by AT&T Uverse. AT&T Uverse. Way better than Spectrum.
Eddie, are you on Instagram?
I am Kirby.matrix on Instagram as well. Okay. Yeah. But again, I what you are to Twitter, I am to Instagram. I need to be better at Instagram than I currently am. So, but yes.
So we're ending this show officially now.
Yes.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. This has been episode number 6 of the Dadward Spiral.
Wait, is anyone on Snapchat?
No,
not anymore.
I had to throw.
Thank you for listening.
Other social
Jesus
media
Christ.
platforms that we didn't.
MySpace. No, I'm sure I still have one somewhere.
I used to work at MySpace. Another conversation for another time. Mm-hmm. Thank you for listening. And as always, be excellent to one another.
Hey there, my name is Wingman Steve.
And I'm Chris.
Chris what?
Yeah, I'm not saying it.
Come on, man, say it. It's so cool.
I'm Chris 183.
Nice, that is awesome.
Yeah, anyways, Steve and I are both 30-something dads.
Super awesome 30-something dads, and we love to nerd out over the power-chorded glory that was 90s and early 2000s pop-punk music.
And at one point, we bled Blink-182 and Yellow Card, even if nowadays we're mostly Baby Shark.
Baby Shark, do-do-do-do-do. Baby Shark rocks.
Fair enough.
Join us on High School Never Ends, the pop-punk dad podcast where we'll discuss, debate, and revel in a music genre that we feel deserves much more love.
At least once we get the kids to bed.
Right. That's High School Never Ends at hsnepod.com, at hsnepod on Twitter and Instagram and wherever podcasts are found.
Dragon Wagon.